I think you should always go for fixed fee arrangements. And I am a strong believer that that's possible in 90% of the cases. This costs you 50K because we have a super backbone of knowledge, tech, AI.
Welcome to Beyond Billable, Lessons from Lexpo. My name is Pim Betist and I'm founder of Clay Richard, Legal AI Consultants. Broadcasting from Lexpo, the legal innovation event, we're diving into the future of the legal sector. In this special series, you'll hear directly from the experts and visionaries at Lexpo about how to future-proof your firm. Practical ideas and honest conversations about the impact of AI on your legal department or practice. In this episode, I sit down with Dick van Lankeren Matthes, founder of Shift Upgrade. With years of experience as a finance lawyer, including as head of the transaction innovation team at Loyens Loeff, Dick knows the legal world inside out, and he's on a mission to change it. We dive into why he left big law after 18 years to help firms and legal departments do things differently. His focus? Making sure highly trained lawyers spend less time on low-value work and more time on what truly matters. We talk about the core elements of meaningful change, people, process, and technology, but also about the big obstacle standing in the way of real innovation in the legal sector, the billable hour. Dick explains why this outdated model kills incentives to improve and argues passionately for shifting to fixed or project-based fees. It's a conversation packed with practical insights on pricing, strategy, and change management, delivered with Dick's signature pragmatism. Whether you're in a law firm or a legal department, expect plenty of food for thought about how to deliver better legal services at lower costs with higher quality. I hope you enjoy this candid and thought-provoking conversation with Dick van Lankeren Matthes. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you.
You are the founder of Shift Upgrade.
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
We help law firms and legal departments actually perform better.
Perform better.
Yeah. We help them with people, process, and tech to make that combination of three elements work better, and so that they deliver smoother products for lower cost, more efficiently, more effectively, higher quality. But that's what we focus on. We focus on three things, and we help law firms and legal departments to do what they do, but just a bit better.
Great. And your own background? Can you give me a brief description?
I'm a finance lawyer. Finance lawyer by trade. I've worked at Loyens Loeff, which is a big international firm, law firm, based in the Netherlands and some other countries in Europe. I've had a couple of roles there. I think my most recent role was the head of a transaction innovation team, where we try to change the way we practice law and try to do things a bit differently and also a bit more effectively.
And then?
Then I decided that after 18 years, after 18 years you are adult. So when I turned 18, I left my parents' house. Mm-hmm. And after 18 years, it was time for me to also leave the lawyer's house and try to do something else. So that's where I decided to actually do what I did before, but do it with a wider group of clients and have a bit wider perspective and help also other law firms and legal departments. With the expertise that I gained in those 18 years before.
So it sounds like you wanted to do things differently.
Yeah, that's a bit core of my my life. Always, I always try to challenge the status quo.
And what was the main thing that needed to change?
Well, as a finance lawyer, I think I really love what I did. I really actually still enjoyed being a finance lawyer, but also we spend a lot of time on what I think is low added value work. So especially when I started off a long time ago, we spent many nights at the office, and actually what we did was not really added value. I was spending a lot of work on removing brackets and doing fairly stupid stuff, and the real stuff that you really need to think hard about, that was fairly limited during the day. And I always wondered why that was the case. Why would you hire talent and to let them do fairly stupid stuff? It's a bit mind numbing. So why not try to change that? So I love what I did, but I didn't love all the elements. So I tried to get rid of those elements.
And how do you help law firms to transition to this new world in which lawyers do interesting stuff all the time instead of process stuff?
I think because I've worked at Loyens Loeff for so long, and I've managed to change or to bring change to even one of the most traditional professions in the world. Those who really don't want to change, and actually they have a very successful business model, so telling lawyers that what they do is wrong and that they should do it differently, whilst they are driving very fancy cars and going home to their pools and their home cinemas, is kind of a difficult job. But well, somehow I managed, and I found actually that really sparks joy with me. So I really get going if I manage to actually change those things. So while I've done that before, I thought why wouldn't I try that somewhere else? And I've been to a lot of conferences, obviously, and you always see these law firms and legal departments struggle trying to bring change to what they do. They all actually see that there's something that needs to happen, and they all want to change, but they struggle to really do so. And I think, well, in my experience, I've done and seen quite a few techniques to make that work, and and that way I want to help them.
And can you give me an example?
Well, I think there's a few examples, but I think if you want to change, there's 3 things you should focus on. It's people, it's the process, and there's tech. And you see many law firms and legal departments really focus on tech, which is obvious because it's fancy, it's cool. There's always one of these lawyers who see something, a nice demo, and they say, I want this. And then they forego all the rest, and that's where it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So they just try to implement or plug a tool, and there's so much more about it than just trying to plug a tool, because that doesn't work. So you actually also need to think of the other elements that you want to change. So I think you should approach it holistically, and maybe on top of those 3 elements, there's also a bit of a strategy element. Yeah, like the pricing for law firms, for example. If you don't get your pricing right, all the other stuff probably is disincentivized. So what we do is we talk to our clients, and we really sit down with them, and rather than talking the solutions, we go and deep dive on what the problem is they struggle with, and they have a lot.
Yeah, they have a lot of problems.
Yeah, obviously they struggle with. Usually, there's a more for less challenge. There's too much work and too little time.
Really?
Everything is too expensive, so either they want to hire more internal lawyers in law and in legal departments, but there's no money for that. Or if you want to hire external law firms, those are extremely expensive. So and the only thing actually a CFO wants to do is cost cutting, obviously.
Yeah, so now you're zooming into the legal department side.
Yeah,
right?
that's the legal department side. Yeah. And for the law firms, it's actually similar. Also they feel the pressure of fees, and the world is getting more and more complex. There's more and more regulations, so everything is getting more complex, and all clients asking for discounts and lower rates. So everybody's struggling to make things cheaper, whilst everything is getting more and more complex. So there's quite a few challenges. And next to that, that's just only on the legal field. Also, you have challenges on people. Well, there's new generations standing up. They are no longer willing to work 80 hours a week. Then they are no longer willing to do like mind-numbing stuff. So they want to be, have a meaningful job. So if you ask them to stay overnight and maybe leave in the morning, and only once they finish the report, they will look at you and say, "Well, I don't think so. I'll have a normal life."
Yeah.
And I actually fully support that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that's a very healthy thing.
Yeah.
And but that's what law firms and legal departments need to deal with. So there's lots of those challenges that they need to deal with. So more for less challenge, different kind of people. There's ample room for improvement everywhere.
And if you would give like a top 3 advice to, let's say, the 2 target audiences. So the first one is the legal departments, and then the other one is the law firms. Maybe there's overlap in your top 3 advice. What 3 things should they look at to improve?
I think so. You want to split them up?
However you think is best.
I think for both of them, they should focus on the problem first. So don't look at fancy solutions or even simple solutions, but really dive into the problem at hand and make sure that everybody is aligned on the problem. It's a design thinking method. It's very commonly used everywhere else outside the legal practice, probably. But I'm a very, very strong believer in design thinking. I think also law firms and legal departments should embrace design thinking in everything they do. So they should really focus on the problem that they need to solve, and really not just decide on this is a problem, but make sure that also the entire management or the entire team or department is supporting that problem, or actually also sees and experiences that problem. Because if there's no alignment on that, then a solution will also not be a solution for all of them.
Exactly.
So that's where it all starts, I guess. I think for law firms, it's very important to change their pricing strategy, because if you're stuck on the billable hour, there's zero incentive, obviously, to do things differently. At least for now, there's zero incentive. I think in the long run, there should be an incentive, because if the rest of the world is changing and you don't change with them, well, then you will, in the end, be lagging behind, and then you're too late to make the change. So it's a bit of Darwinism. So you should already start making the change, or I believe you should started making the change 10 years ago, but it's still not too late. But you should start really now on changing the way you do your pricing, because if you do your pricing differently, that creates a different incentive on how to run your practice.
You basically create new problems, but those problems are good problems to solve.
Exactly. Because if you try to hide and don't see those problems, then in the end, they will hit you in the face. It's maybe with global warming, right? If you just ignore them and say they're not there, well,
that's
if you
not going to
wait
make
for 30
them go
years,
away.
you're too late.
Yeah.
And I think for law firms, it's sooner than 30 years. So I wouldn't set the 2015 deadline like the Paris Agreement. So I would pull it forward a bit more. So I think you need to start changing now, because it takes time to change. It's not something. There's no AI tool that you can implement and say, well, we're done. It takes time to change the entire organization. And then, probably the bigger the organization you get, the more time it takes. So it's like a mammoth tanker. So you really need to start changing now.
Yeah.
So it's not so much creating a problem now and not nice to solve them. There is a problem, but maybe you don't see it yet.
Yeah. There's a third one. But after that, I want to continue about the billable hour a bit. But I asked for 3. Do you have another one?
Let me think. I think these are really the two.
These are the 2
elements. Change your strategy and start really with the problem. If you do that, I think you're on the good path.
Yeah.
I cannot come up with 5, but I think these are the 2 core that I would advise to focus on.
I get a very pragmatic feel when I talk to you. Is that true? Are you a pragmatic person?
Yeah.
How does that incorporate in your work?
Well, I always want to know what it means. So I always know. So if people come up with either problems or solutions or how well, I always want to understand what it's okay, but what does this mean in practice, right? So I think, for example, well, most lawyers they love discussing legal problems, right? So there's this latest case law or stuff, and well, many lawyers can get lost in discussing the nitty-gritty details of regulations and stuff, and then they forget actually what it means in practice. And I'm always so puzzled by it. So okay, well, now we spend an hour discussing all these details, but what does it mean in practice? And then often the answer is, well, in practice it only means that we change this clause in an agreement, or that we do this approach slightly different. So well, let's discuss that then. And how do we take that further? Because well, often if you just get stuck in the legal fluff, nothing happens. But probably what the real thing is that you need to do is you need to break open 1,000 contracts and start renegotiating it because there's a new regulation in place that you need to cater for. And maybe it's a bit something that I had as a lawyer, that I was always like, okay, guys, now can we go back to what's really needs to be done, rather than just doing the theoretical stuff.
Yeah,
the academia kind of is nice, but it doesn't really serve a purpose.
Yeah,
and I always want to see what purpose a discussion actually is for. So
can I see you apply your pragmatic lens to the question of pricing? How to make it? I mean, let's make it simple.
Yeah. So I've always been a bit puzzled by the billable hour from the day I started. That's over 18 years ago, and they asked me to write my time, and I said, well, it's impossible. That what I've just done, that it's worth this much. Well, anyhow, so that's where my first thing started with the hourly rate. It's a bit funny, right? How can people pay for the fact that I spend time on this? And especially in the beginning, you're not really great at what you do, so sometimes you waste a bit of time, or you sit long nights and you think, well, maybe I should have done it all differently and could have done it much faster. So I asked my boss, should I write a different time? No, just write what you did. So, okay, well, I found it very funny that my clients had to pay for my mistakes. And if I actually was faster, that they paid less. So that my boss was actually happy if I was a very slow worker. I never understood that. I liked it because I had a lot of work, so you could show off that you made a lot of money. But I've always found it funny. And I have never been able to explain it to anybody why there was a billable hour. So why is this in place? Because you would never, for example, if you hire a painter to paint your house, would you ever pay him by the hour? Well, I certainly would not. I would just invite him and say, well, this is my house. How much will this cost? And if he spends a week or 6 weeks, I don't care.
Just get it done.
Just get it done. If he does it faster at the same quality, let's assume we set a certain standard. He delivers a certain standard. I don't care how much time. Actually, if he can do it in a week, I prefer that than having scaffolding around the house for 6 weeks. So I wouldn't get why you would pay a lawyer by the hour and a house painter not. You know, it doesn't get you better work if they work slower or something. So I think it's very old fashioned. I've never understood the billable hour. So I've always figured out trying to find ways to change that.
Right. Can you give some directions? I mean, fixed fees is obviously one of them.
Yeah.
Do you give advice about this, or is it basically your advice, go to fixed fee?
Well, the fixed fee is the easiest one nowadays because it's fairly accepted. I think when I started doing this, it was not accepted, and I had very long arguments with both clients and in-house. Well, in my law firm, very long discussions, and both they said, well, we don't want to have the fixed fee, but I think for both sides there's arguments to want to go to the fixed fee, and I think that makes the the most sense. So it's either any kind of project fee is for me the most logical. All the other stuff are usually deviations from the hourly rate. And you can have success rates or abortion rates, etc. But those are all like either a bit plus or minus of the hourly rate. So I think you should always go for fixed fee arrangements. And I am a strong believer that that's possible in 90% of the cases, at least in most of the big law firms. They should be able to offer fixed fees for the majority of stuff.
What are some disadvantages of the fixed fee from the client's perspective? I mean, it's nice for the client to know that what they're going to pay, but what are some disadvantages?
Well, if there is all of a sudden significantly less work, then a fixed fee would be a disadvantage. So if you deliver a piece of or request a piece of work, and everything goes extremely smooth, so it goes much faster on all sides, well, then you don't get the upshot.
Okay.
But I think if I would be on the client side, I would always go for the fixed fee.
And what if the law firm takes less time and doesn't care about quality as much because they're not being paid the amount that they're used to?
Sorry, they don't care about policy?
No, quality.
I think that's the end of the law firm. I kind of live on the assumption that most lawyers, they have this bit of ego, or they try their best. Probably there's this rare or rogue lawyer who just doesn't care, but probably his career will be very short too. That's something that is not sustainable, obviously.
Yeah, it's a people business, and its reputation is super important. So if you deliver bad work, you're never going to get.
I've seen lawyers deliver bad work, but I've never seen a lawyer deliver bad work on purpose. I think they all try their best.
Right.
I can hardly imagine that there's lawyers just trying to deliver lower quality.
Yeah. Do you see any other models evolve, or can you imagine any other models?
Well, all the other models are usually in a way related to the hourly rate, so I'm not a fan of those.
Okay. All right.
So I would
keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. And for me, the fixed fee is the and there's all kinds of types of fixed fees, obviously. So it's not always just like it's 100K and that's it. You can have modalities in there, but as a core, I think the fixed fee is a good model.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, if there's lawyers who say, well, I can't offer a fixed fee, this is too complex. Well, then you can cut it up in small fixed fees, right? For example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Or you could say, well, there's 6 elements to this case or to this matter, and the first 4 I can give you a fixed fee for, and the 5th and the 6th I cannot give you a fixed fee now because we don't know yet.
Right. That's a smart one. Yeah.
So what I come from a finance practice, which is where fixed fees are nowadays a bit more common, but when I started it was not. And people say, well, but you know what's going to happen. Well, yeah, kind of, but you also know that for many transactions, and then in most litigation lawyers say, yeah, but litigation is so much different. Well, I beg to differ, actually, because litigation also has a kind of rhythm. You don't know, maybe you go and there's a more back and forth. Yeah, you have to go, or there's a witness hearing, etc. Well, you can carve those out, obviously. So this is the fixed fee. But if there's a witness hearing, well, we'll talk then. Or I can give you a quote now. If there's a witness hearing with 1 witness or 6 witnesses, you could deal with it. But those are all like modalities of the fixed fee. So the fixed fee doesn't per se mean this is the fee, but it does say this is there's no hourly rate involved anymore. So you can play with the fixed fee still.
Yeah, there's an hourly rate that leads to the fixed fee, But
on the back end, yeah, maybe you do something for, I think law firms will always do a bit of this management, on the back end. You want to know what's happening, but on the front end, the hourly rate is irrelevant, and it will become more and more irrelevant if you see more tech and more support coming in.
Yeah, I can imagine, for instance, due diligence being cut like, to 10% of what it used to cost when it's productized like this, and provided with a fixed fee. And I can imagine a lot of these services changing and becoming easier to deliver using generative AI and rule-based AI combined, maybe. So I can also imagine turnovers decreasing because prices are going to decrease. What's your advice to?
Well, I think that's a bigger issue that law firms will be struggling with. I think the leverage model, which is very, very common, especially in big law, where you have a single partner and like the pyramid beneath it, like with what is it, 6, 7, 8 associates, and all those associates have a higher turnover, so the partner can have a swimming pool. I think that leverage model will have to shrink, because it's no longer feasible to have like a battery of junior associates doing this type of work. So
hire less people and let some people go.
That's they don't have to stop hiring people right now, but what I think is effectively what you will see is that the pyramid will have a smaller base and go steeper. So you have fewer junior associates, fewer medians, and fewer seniors. So it's going to be more of a pillar shape in the end. It will always be a bit of a pyramid, but in the past we've seen like a leverage of 10 one partner and 10 associates below, and that is a super driver for profitability, obviously. But it's not sustainable if you cut out all the manual labor.
Right.
And clients will expect you to cut it out. If you don't cut it out, well, they'll buy the due diligence report somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's simply going to happen. So I think law firms need to start thinking about their profitability and their business models on that point. But that's just a given, actually.
Are there other ways to leverage?
Well, it's prices can go up, right?
Okay.
So I can imagine that the hourly rate goes up,
which is happening already.
It's happening, and it makes sense. And the same goes for fixed fees or project fees, right? So where you, especially if you have more and more tech involved, and you have more and more of these legal engineers and technical support, etc., it's no longer, and it makes even more case for stopping with the hourly rate. The hourly rate, like in the 1970s, made sense because you had a lawyer and he had like a pen and his work, that was his work. And you had an assistant supporting the lawyer, and she would do the mail, right? But now it's so complex. So now you have to, cater in all those extra costs. So, and that also, explains a bit, I think law firms should do a better job explaining the fact that the hourly rate is not the fact that you pay 500 euros for this lawyer. No, you pay 500 euros because there's such a big backbone and there's such a knowledge base, etc. And again, sorry, I'm going back to hourly rate, not because I just for the sake of the example.
Yeah.
But I guess the entire package of work, this costs you 50K because we have a super backbone of knowledge, tech, AI. We have a way of working, we have procedures, we have playbooks, and that, puts us in the position that we can help you and run this transaction for you in a very fast manner with a high quality.
Yeah.
So it's no longer tied to the hour that is spent just by the lawyer.
Yeah.
In the past, you would just the hour by the lawyer plus the cost of the secretary.
Yeah. So
or half a secretary, whatever you want. But now it's so complex.
The product that you're buying, it'll be like you can have it in a week, and it'll cost 50,000 euros, and you don't have to care about how we do it, will take care of it, and a lot of software is involved, but clients will not get like a breakdown. Like if you buy something from a supermarket, you don't get a breakdown of how that product has been produced and what costs were in there.
Exactly.
You just pay the price.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're saying.
And that's the price. And
That's the price.
if you, well, I think it's fair. I think it's completely fair. And if you think it's not fair, go get a quote somewhere else.
Exactly.
And that's what clients are doing, obviously. So you just get a couple of quotes, and they will tell you what it's going to cost. And there's one law firm, in the future there will be one law firm say, yeah, we do it by hourly rate. And they say, okay, thank you. And you just go on to the next one because you won't hire that one, obviously.
Yeah. So it sounds like law firms have homework, and the first thing they need to do is find out what they sell. And then they need to know what that costs them to sell it, or actually to deliver the service.
Yeah.
And then they need to price it.
Exactly.
Those 3 steps need to be done as soon as possible now.
Yeah. Or you could do it also in a different way. But for example, I think law firms always had like some idea of the turnover they want to realize.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't realize that fact right now, but when they started the hourly rate, which only exists only for 50 years, because before 50 years ago they didn't have the hourly rate either.
Oh no?
No. It was introduced in the 70s, 80s.
That's interesting. How did they pay for the services before?
Well, that was done on an assessment by the lawyer on the level of complexity, and the amount of work that would go into it, and the expertise needed, etc.
With a fixed fee?
With a fixed fee.
Interesting.
And the fixed fee would sometimes also come in the end, like, so, well, we spent a lot of time on this, so this is what you're going to pay. And it's on fairness, probably. And probably in the 1970s, you would have a bit more trust in your lawyer. It's a smaller community, so maybe you would just trust the lawyer. Well, he will probably not rip me off, and otherwise I will tell the entire village.
Yeah.
But in the 1970s, that's how we did it. And then there came this move towards transparency and show me, and why isn't this expensive? And then they came up with these hourly rates, and then the senior partner would be would get a higher hourly rate than the junior.
Of course.
Yeah. So obviously, because there's more expertise, but that's it. It was only introduced 50 years ago. So it's not that. It's not that old, this hourly rate.
But you were saying if you know the target turnover that you want to reach, you could also kind of
divided by the amount of transactions that you do.
Reverse engineer, yeah. That's so. Then you know how many products you need to sell.
And I say it's very simple, but it's a bit more complex than that. You know, I've worked with Loyens Loeff for 18 years, and I cannot just say, well, I want to have 4 million divided by so many deals, so that's so many per matter.
Yeah, but it's a starting point.
It's a starting. So it's well, that's also how they started with the hourly rate. So this is how you can do it with fixed fee.
How about clients? Are clients ready to pay fixed fees? Are they happy with this?
Many are, and a few are not. But also on their side, if I would be a client, I would always want to have the fixed fee. Like with the painter, you would never hire a painter to do your house on hourly rate, right?
Yeah.
And I've had many discussions with them, and I said, yeah, but I want to have an hourly rate. Well, I can give you an hourly rate. I can give you an estimate. That was in the past. He would say, well, I estimate this is going to be 50K or 60, I don't know. And I say, yeah, but I want you to cap it. And I say, well, I can cap it for you at 70K. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's 70K. So, and if I do a fixed fee, a law firm can obviously do a lower fixed fee than the capped fee, right?
Of course.
Because if sometimes you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
So there's always it's more. It can be more competitive if you offer a fixed fee.
Yep.
And if you do enough of them, and law firms typically do enough matters, then they win some, they lose some, and they end up somewhere in the middle. So it's got to be fine, and that's good for a client. If you do a capped fee and you do hourly rates, you will always end up paying the most. There's no incentive to be efficient. So I can promise you always pay the capped fee. So why would you ever pick that?
Yeah, if you give yourself a task and then something non-legal, non-professional, and you give yourself 3 hours to do the task, you will always use 3 hours to do the task.
Yeah.
That's basically how the brain works.
Exactly.
So that's
probably 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Because you started too late, or you were too slow, or you were distracted. Yeah. So there's also, for the client side, it makes so much more sense to do a fixed fee. And it gives you also certainty. Like, how often do you, as a client, not have to renegotiate like these hours that they put on the bill? And then you look at it, you get a bit grumpy, obviously. You think, oh, these lawyers are so expensive. Mm-hmm. And we get sloppy coffee with these lawyers. We pay a lot of them for them. Mm-hmm. And you get annoyed by all the hours they put in, and you go check them and discuss them.
Completely unpredictable as well, because you pay the advance and then it always goes over the advance.
Obviously.
So you never know what you're going to have to pay.
Yeah. So
there's another interesting advantage, which is that a lot of clients are demanding their law firms to use AI and to show what they're using AI for, to basically enforce them to be efficient. But it's basically none of their business. That's basically what you're telling me now.
Well,
if it's a fixed fee,
if you're still stuck on the hourly rate, then you maybe want to enforce the use of AI. Like if you have a house painter, maybe you want to enforce him using like a spray paint for your interior walls rather than doing it by a mini pencil or something. I don't know. But if you do like a project fixed fee, what do you care? Probably they will use AI. If not, they will be losing money, but you don't care.
Exactly.
So I think it's a bit misguided. Or it's also a waste of their time and energy to start checking whether your lawyer has used a certain type of tool. Yeah. And use it properly. What do you care? You just want them to do a proper, efficient, fast job, and probably they are good at it. I'm not going to check what my painter is doing. I want him to deliver quality, but I'm not going to check, how he applies the paint. Really, I don't care.
Perfect.
So I think it doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe on top of that, I see a lot of I've negotiated a lot of hourly rates with like these procurement departments of big corporates, and they're always so focused on the hourly rate, which I always tell them this is completely the wrong focus, because I can give you a 20% discount, but what does that mean? If I'm 20% slower, you only measure one of the two parts of the equation. So then you measure price, but not the time I put in. Yeah. So I can be very slow, very inefficient, and then the 20% is gone in a second.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, we're going to compare these hourly rates to other law firms. Yeah, but if I use AI and the other law firm doesn't, then it doesn't make any sense at all anymore. Yeah. So the hourly rate, really, it's done and gone. It should be gone.
Yeah.
And there's no incentive for innovation if you keep on doing this. So also the procurement departments, they should stop asking for this.
Yeah. We'll have to think of a new podcast name once it's completely gone. Are there any other topics or things you want to share with our audience?
Well, I think this is probably the core of it. But I think clients should really stop accepting the hourly rate. I think that's the only way. There's quite a few law firms who do, and I think so clients should stop accepting it. Why would you ever accept it? There's rare cases where you can, obviously, where it's a very specific or it's a very tiny matter where they spend 5 hours or 10 hours, they can't give you a fixed fee, or the fixed fee is going to be too high. But you should stop asking for the hourly rate, stop accepting it. And I think law firms, especially law firm leaders, they should really also make this shift. If they haven't done it yet, they should make this shift, because as long as you don't make that shift, there's this extremely disincentive for innovation in your law firm. And the only way to reach or to innovate your law firm is to change the way you bill. And I think innovation is extremely important for law firms, Because if you don't do it and the rest does, or some are doing it, well, it's going to be like global warming. You sit there below sea level, and just waiting for the sea to come, and then you're too late. So I think you should already start preparing for the future. So start innovating your law firm, and this is a great enabler to innovate and to be ready for the future.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, they're spending so much time motivating people to use AI, to get to understand it. But as soon as you create an incentive for people to use it, they will do it by themselves.
Exactly.
So you don't have to waste that time anymore. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's very, very logical. I love it. Very pragmatic, simple. Create the problem so that the problem can be solved, basically.
Yeah.
Create new problems so those new problems can be solved. Thank you so much. This was very enlightening.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Billable, Lessons from Lexpo. This podcast is a collaboration with Neo House Amsterdam and Lexpo, the legal innovation event. If you have any questions following this episode, please email us at hello@clayrichard.eu.